This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking today about the impending InReach modernization project. So I'll provide a little bit of background, share what is happening, when it's going to happen, and what it will mean for you in terms of managing your library's prospector activity. I'll also talk about some things that you could be doing, if not today, very soon, to make sure that you are ready for what is coming. So a bit of background first. Historically, the Prospector InReach system has run on the Millennium platform, which uses Red Hat 7 as its operating system. So Red Hat 7 actually, I think, ended its life in June. So Innovative Interfaces, which is the vendor that provides the InReach platform, is migrating all of the InReach systems to the Sierra platform, which uses a newer operating system. So the benefits of this are that we will keep getting operating system updates, which is, a good thing. It simplifies the installation and maintenance process, and it allows for quicker feature releases. So this work is happening in two phases, one of which is complete and will basically have been invisible to you, other than some downtime back in March, and then a new location for some fulfillment reports that you might use to gather data about your prospector activity. However, there is a second phase that will affect you if you use the Millennium RSB client. So the Prospector Central Server, which is the server that the RSB servers talk to and on which the Union Catalog Prospector lives, that was migrated to Sierra in late March. Here's a little diagram to illustrate where the central server sits kind of in the architecture and how you might interact with it depending on the system that you use. So this kind of orangish silo is the central server, and that is the only component that has been migrated to date. There's really no functional impact to how libraries interact with Prospector, other than, again, maybe a new bookmark for that fulfillment report if you use that to track your activity. So phase 2 of the migration will affect the RSB servers, of which the Swift server is one. So those will also be migrated to the Sierra platform, after which libraries that use the Millennium RSB client will have to start using the Sierra web interface to process Prospector material. So the good news is that you no longer have to use the Millennium RSB client, which I know will make some folks happy. The downside here is that staff will need to get used to a new interface. Sorry, I'm just letting people in as they arrive. So I have personally not used the Sierra web interface yet, but my understanding is that the workflows for borrowing and lending won't change for the most part. So for instance, you're still going to use your same staff username and password to log in. And you'll still scan a barcode into the function called Not My Item Checkout when a prospector item arrives at your library. But the navigation, or kind of how you get to that function in Sierra, will be a little different. So we'll also have basically the same network requirements. So even though you won't need to have that Millennium software installed in your computer, you're still going to need to be on a computer that's coming from an IP address that we have registered in our firewall. So additionally, your library will also need to configure an additional port in your firewall to allow access, or to allow traffic to come and go on that port. I'll talk a little bit more about this and how you can test your access now in just a bit. So when is this going to happen? So back in October, the Colorado Alliance's RSB server was updated, and as far as I know, everything's been going smoothly. So it's nice that we didn't have to be the first ones to go here. And then in November, on the 11th, around midday, Innovative is going to begin the Swift RSB server migration to Sierra. So we expect that this will take about 24 hours. And during that time, Swift libraries that use the RSB will not be able to place new requests or access the Millennium RSB client. When service resumes on the 12th, you're going to need to work in the Sierra Web interface rather than the Millennium RSB client. If your library uses direct integration with Koha, so if you're an AspenCat library, if you're a Department of Corrections library, if you use Polaris, or you're a Marmot library that uses Sierra, you're not going to be affected by the downtime. You're not going to have any change in how you process Prospector materials in your local system. So this applies to libraries that use the Millennium client only. So here is that basic system architecture again with the RSB components that will be impacted highlighted. So you can see that our RSB server is going to touch not just the server, but also the interface that staff use to interact with it. And just to illustrate what I mean by the statement that the workflows for borrowing and lending won't change, but the navigation will. Here is a screenshot of the Not My Item check-in function in the Millennium client. You access this function using the button on the left, and then you scan the item barcode to receive or return the item. And in Sierra Web, you're just going to select Not My Item check-in from the dropdown on the right and then scan in the barcode. So same basic workflow, just different navigation. The same thing is true for checking the item out to your patron or staff card. You access this function using the button on the left, then you pull up the patron record, then scan the item barcode to check it out. Same deal in Sierra Web. You're just going to select checkout from the menu on the right, pull up the patron record, and scan the item barcode in to check out the item. So it's the same for lending. If you are currently lending using the Millennium RSB client, where you currently access the library checkout function on the left, you will find that same function in the dropdown on the right. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what to expect. So it's not going to be totally foreign. The same terminology is used throughout the interface. The main difference is really just selecting the function you need to use from the dropdown rather than clicking a button. And of course, the benefit is that you can access this interface from a web browser. So, if you get a new computer, you don't have to jump through the hoops of downloading and installing the Millennium client. All right, so currently our Swift instance of Sierra Web is in a preview period so that we can test network configuration and confirm that you will have access to that site on November 12th. So depending on how you currently connect, the requirements may differ a little bit. So if your library uses a firewall, you're going to need to open port 63100 to allow traffic to and from the Swift server, which is noted here. And you most likely already have other ports open for this server in order to connect via the RSB client. So the server IP has not changed. You also still need to be on a computer that is coming from an IP address that we have registered for your library. So this would be any computer that you currently use the Millennium RSB client on. Now, the alternative to that, and this applies to only a small selection of libraries, is those that use a VPN profile that we have provided in order to connect. So this applies to libraries whose internet service provider couldn't provide a stable IP address, or they use a type of firewall that can't accommodate the Prospector network requirements. So we have provided them with a VPN profile and a client to allow them to connect. So if you are one of our VPN users, you can connect to that and you should be all good. You don't need to worry about the ports or your computer's IP because that's all taken care of with that connection. If you are not sure if you use our VPN or not, let me know. And again, if your library uses direct integration between Koha, Polaris, or Sierra, you don't need to do any of this. So once you've covered the port and the IP address, you can test the link. So you'll just pop this link here in a web browser. If you get this Welcome to Sierra web page, you're good to go. Note that if you did click on this Connect to Sierra web service, it will return an error message, and that's okay. That's expected for right now. So as long as you can get to this page, that is success. However, if you get a page like this, we will probably need to do a little bit of troubleshooting with you. Sorry, I've got some chats. Um, I will I will get to that in just a moment. Okay, so the first thing to determine is, can you connect to the Millennium RSB client on the workstation you're trying to access this website on? So if you can, the most likely issue is with the port not being open. So you want to double check your firewall settings to make sure that 63100 is open, or check with your IT folks. If your IT folks come back with questions or you have questions, you can feel free to pass them along to me or refer them to me directly. We can help with that. Um, if you can't connect to the Millennium RSB client, you're going to want to check your IP address, provided you've confirmed that that port is open. The most likely issue, if you're not able to connect to the Millennium RSB client, is that you're not on a computer that's coming from an IP address that we have registered. So in that case, your next step is going to be to check your IP address. What's my IP .com is a great way to do that. You just type that into your browser and then let me know what it tells you. So then your next step will be to reach out to us via swift-support@coloradovirtuallibrary.org. Include your IP address so I can check to confirm that it is indeed registered in our firewall. And if possible, a screenshot of what you're seeing in your message is helpful as well. So that is about it in terms of what you should be doing now, and what is coming. I will be sending out these slides. They'll include links to resources to be aware of. So we've got the step-by-step instructions to test the connectivity that we just talked about, linked here, who to contact, of course, if you need assistance. We do have draft Sierra Web documentation up on the Swift knowledge base. It is mostly complete. There are some lending functions that, because I don't have access to the interface yet, I haven't been able to document, but we will be updating those as soon as possible. And then finally, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe to the Swift listserv for the latest activity on this project. I will be posting updates and notifications about when the service is going down on the 11th, coming back up on the 12th, and any other relevant information. So hopefully there won't be any hiccups, just like there weren't for the Alliance RSB server. But just in case, the list is where I will be sharing updates and details about anything like that. So we have plenty of time for questions, I think. I'm going to pop over to the chat. So Nadine asks, when will the recording be available? I will, once it renders and I can put it up on YouTube, I will send out a link to it, Nadine. And Leanna asks, will CNCC be able to lend materials now? And the answer to that is no. This doesn't have any impact on the functionality that has been implemented for your library up to this point. So if you're not lending now, this doesn't change that. If you are lending now, you'll continue to lend. Any other questions? You can feel free to unmute yourself too, if it's easier. We're a small group, so.
Yes, I was wondering the site to get to success.
Mhm.
I got all of it, but the last the last of the address.
Mhm.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Sarah Webb.
Yeah, and I will send out this information as well. Are you on
Thank
the
you.
Swift list? Is that how you ended up at this little webinar?
We are on Millennium.
Sorry, are you subscribed to the Swift
Yes.
listserv? Okay,
Yes.
so I'll be sure to send the slides, which will have the links, as well as just put the links in the message too,
Okay,
so that
great.
you'll have that. Any other questions that I can answer? As soon as I have access to the Sierra Web, I will try to offer maybe some additional more functional webinars or training options if people feel like they need it. But the most important thing right now is just making sure that you're set up network wise and that you can access this page, because the you will not be able to access the Millennium RSB server client starting on like midday on the 12th. So if there aren't any other questions, I will let folks get on with their day. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Feel free to reach out to me at any point if you have questions, and we'll see you soon.